Hello, and welcome to the Female Founder Friday podcast with me, Lindsay White. I'm passionate about helping female entrepreneurs be great leaders, build high-performing teams, and create inspiring workplace cultures through innovative talent programs and practices. Because when people feel like they belong at work, they deliver their very best and businesses thrive. The Female Founder Friday podcast is all about connecting with the most incredible female entrepreneurs to talk about their journey to creating their own business, the mistakes they've made along the way, and how they view their own leadership. And I'm challenging all of my guests this season to take my leadership style quiz. And during each episode, we'll be digging into their leadership style and how it impacts the way they lead in their life and their business. And if you're interested in learning more about your leadership style and want some of my top tips to help you lead more effectively, you can take the quiz right now. Just check out the show notes or head over to highvoltageleadership.ca and click on the button at the top of the page that says Take the Quiz. Then you can share your results, connect with my guests, and join the conversation on Instagram by following me at @HighVoltLeadership. Hey everyone, it is another episode of the Female Founder Friday podcast, and I'm so excited today. I have Ericka with me here, and Ericka, I'm super interested in talking to you today and actually learning more about your journey to being a female founder. I know that you are like bi-coastal, which is so cool to me. I'd love to hear about how that developed, because that's
okay.
So thank you. Thank you for making some time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay. I'm super excited to talk to you and share my story. And I'll just jump in.
Do it.
So I grew up in what I didn't know at the time was an entrepreneurial family. In fact, now my sister runs our family's third generation real estate business that she took over from my mom, who took over from my grandfather in the town where we grew up. And at the time, I just thought everybody, I mean, I knew it, not everybody, but it's a small town, and, a lot of, people worked for either, businesses where, you knew the families that were running them. And so for me, it was nothing unusual. No one ever came home to complain about the boss, because that was part of the family.
You were having supper with that night.
That's right. But it was also, I grew up in a town called High Point, North Carolina, which is the home of home furnishings. And so, so there's a lot of furniture manufacturers in the area. Had been the kind of hub of, it's kind of like it's what they call the Detroit of furniture. So, Detroit manufactures cars. It's sort of like there's that, not just car making, but all the kind of ancillary businesses that support it. So the same with High Point. There's a huge transportation network that runs kind of all around the US for deliveries. There's lots of lumber because there's lots of forests. There's rivers that shipped everything. So it sort of set up this perfect place, and the labor market was there. So there's a biannual home show that happens there. And so I was exposed to this, home furnishings, homemaking, interior design, and along with the family kind of real estate business, I was in homes my whole life. I kind of grew up in the residential world, just thinking about how people live. I would go with, my mom, or even sometimes my grandfather. We would go to homes and sort of either my parents were looking for something, or it was part of our family. And I would rethink oh man, if I could redesign this house, what would I do? Really needs a makeover. It was really always the first thing, but always had ideas. And so then I went to school, studied fine art as an undergrad. And then I went to interior architecture for grad school. And then I went to work as an interior designer. I did that for about 10 years all over the world, doing lots of big kind of corporate and institutional projects, some high-end residential. And then I came back to the US. While I was there, I kind of transitioned into marketing roles, because I was really good at taking the stories and the design ideas and helping the marketing teams, understand them enough to make them really succinct to pitch to clients. So I became kind of the transition between the design team's ideas and how they got sold as, new business. Yep. And so I did that about 10 years ago. And I kind of moved over to the dark side of marketing, went back to school, studied, got a better, foundation of like how, marketing and branding,
Right.
the foundation for that for business, and have been doing my current company, Saurit Creative. I founded in 2020, along with a lot of other very bold and ambitious women who started businesses in the middle of COVID.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and I did it sort of out of I really don't know what I was thinking, because there was so much chaos at that time in every part of the world. I left the company I was with, which was a huge tech company. I was sort of sitting in between the design team, the kind of environments team, and the marketing team, sort of, bridging those roles. And just the idea of remote work, working for another company, going onboarding, kind of doing any of that remotely, really just that was just a no way for me. I was going through a divorce.
Mm.
It was like the world was shutting down. Nobody knew what was happening. And it was a really confusing time. But the only thing I knew, the only confident choice that I could make at that time was like, I just have to do this on my own. I have to do, I have to see, because I can't go back and work for someone else right now. There's just too much going on. I'm too distracted. The idea, again, of remote work for another company just made me not want to get out of bed in the morning. I thought, no. So I called up or emailed, in fact, all of the manufacturers I knew, because I had been working, like I said, as an interior designer and marketing for the home industry. I called up all the manufacturers that I knew, the home brands. And these are companies that make, furniture, lighting, rugs, art, accessories, like nearly anything in the home you can think of. It's usually made, a lot of it is made in the US, or
Yeah.
there's an office in the US. So I
Right.
called up all the people I knew and I was like, I know what's happening for you right now is that you have got to digitize. You've got to either transform your business if it's not been on a digital platform,
Mhm.
um, and and you have to rethink the way you market to interior designers, because people are, for the somewhat foreseeable future, the way we sell and market to each other on a B2B level is changing. So how can I help you? And from that, I started with a few clients, and some are still with me today. And I started a business, and I was scared as hell every single day, because I thought, like, okay, what do I not know? And then I was like, everything. Like, when it comes to, invoicing and contracts and
Yeah.
taxes and, actually setting up a company. And then
Yes.
I've got to find people who want to work with me. And I'm like, I got to a certain point after a year where I was like, okay, the world is changing again. Some of the problems I'm solving for my clients are shifting and changing, and that's great. But how do I want to continue to run this business? I was
Yeah.
running it digitally, of course, because we
Right.
could, and that was really the only option. But I was like, okay, so should I get an office space? Should I, you know, grow this like an agency model? What do I want to do? And it caused me to kind of shift again. Like, I thought, no, because of the things that were happening in my personal life, I'm gonna move. I'm gonna just continue making enormous changes in my life. And at that point, that's when when we were talking kind of before off offline. How do you say
Offline.
off the
Sure.
pod?
Off the
Whatever.
pot.
I was saying that I live now in between two Souths, the South, like North Carolina, where I grew up, and then the South of France. So, um, you know, COVID gave me the opportunity to see if I could run my business digitally anywhere. And I have friends that I had known for many years who were living in France. And they said, you know what, just come here for a couple months, the length of your tourist visa, and see if it feels right. See if you can live here, see if you can adjust, and see if you can, coordinate the time with your clients in the US
Yeah.
and some in Canada. Like, how can you do it? And
Yeah.
I went for a couple months and I said, you know what? There's an adjustment, obviously, in the timing and how I work, but I can. And I did. And so throughout all these kind of different stages in over the last 3 years, but even before, I kind of realized like you just have to continuously take chances. And in
Yeah.
your business, they're informed in many ways, but sometimes they're not. And you have to kind of be bold and go forward. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes because I've got another answer to the question. I think we're going to keep talking
Yes.
when it comes to that.
No, but
But I'll stop there.
I
Yeah.
love that. Like, I think as female founders, I talk with my clients a lot about intentional risk. So
Yes.
that's what I hear in your story is,
Yeah.
first and foremost, really believing in yourself and your skills and your experience and
Yeah.
the value that you bring. I love the way you leveraged your network. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of power in our networks, personal networks
Absolutely.
and professional networks, because I don't think you can discount the friends
No.
that encouraged you to come to France, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of
That's right.
power there, but I love this idea of you followed your gut, you had
Mhm.
a calling, you saw a need, and you just continue to take intentional chances,
Mhm.
right? Knowing that success is as likely as failure. And I think sometimes we tend to focus on the failure too much. In
Yes.
fact, success is just as likely. It's
Yeah.
just as likely an outcome. And
How
look
well
at,
said. That's so beautiful. I love that.
I think we're programmed. I mean, our brains are
Yeah.
programmed to focus on the risk, right?
Yep.
The
Yep.
tricky is we're not running away from saber-toothed tigers anymore. I mean, that was the original survival, right? Is we were going to get eaten.
That's
We're
right.
now what we're managing is some personal risk, some
Yeah.
reputational risk. Maybe there's financial risk in there too. I mean,
Financial. Yep.
but realistically,
Yeah.
that possibility of success is still is just as much in existence as the possibility of failure and everything in
Absolutely.
between. So I love that. I really love, thank you for sharing that story with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think there's so many of us that, in COVID, we dealt with a lot. Like, it was traumatic and we're still
It
recovering.
really was. It's true.
We're
Yep. In
still,
many ways.
we're still trying to figure that out. But I love that you took that and you made something really beautiful from it. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Erica's taken my leadership style quiz because I make every guest take it.
I took it twice, actually.
So we're going to talk about her leadership style because I'm sure you uncovered a lot about yourself now leading a business. So
Yeah.
that's going to be an interesting conversation. If you want to take the quiz, you can check out the link in the show notes, or you can just jump over to highvoltageleadership.ca. There's a little orange button at the top of the page that says, ironically, take the quiz. You can do it right now. Yeah, we make it obvious. It only takes what, a few minutes, Ericka? It's
Oh,
not.
it's super fast.
Yeah,
Yeah. No,
super
it's great.
fast. It's a lot of fun. You're going to find out something interesting about yourself and the way you show
Mhm.
up as a leader. I'm also going to send you some of my top tips so you can be a more effective leader right now today. But tell us, what was your leadership style? What did you get out of that quiz?
My leadership style is coaching.
Oh,
And that's no surprise to me at all. That word, of course, is a little surprising. I don't see myself as a coach, but more of an educator. I was an educator for about 5 years. I taught at the university level while I was just kind of transitioning out of graduate school while I was working.
nice.
And I loved it. But coaching means to me, it makes sense. I am a kind of reformed people pleaser, but I'm also an
Well,
empath.
eat every Wednesday, bring wine. Yeah, 100%.
I love, my deepest and most sincere hope for anyone like I've ever worked with, but especially people on my team, kind of people either working with me to create a project or, as employees. I want everyone to succeed. And I'm like dead serious. I want people to discover their purpose in life or in their business and in my business and the business we're in together, and then achieve whatever goals are important to them. I know what that feels like for myself, and I want other people to have that feeling of achievement, because once it's kind of like, once you taste success, once you see your potential, it kind of amplifies. Like you're able to see, okay, well, I can do this. And now how about if I tried this? And then what if I tried this? And like that momentum is something I think you have to kind of show and prove to yourself. So I want people to see their potential either with a team, because that's also an empowering experience. And I've been on really great teams where at the end of it, you're just like, man,
Yes.
we are 10 times what one person is. And
Yes.
that's great. I love that. But I want people to see and realize all those things. So I've also been on really crappy teams with like managers who were the worst, and they like really held everyone back, and they were just sort of in it for themselves. And I don't want to be that person at all. I certainly think coaching feels spot on.
I love it. Well, and I think you nailed it. I think, as someone who spends a large part of their day, like before this conversation, I've already had 2 coaching calls this morning with clients.
Amazing. That's great.
I love being a coach, but I think one thing that you highlighted is that being a great coach is actually not about me. It is absolutely about helping and supporting and guiding others.
Yeah.
Recognizing their own powers, their own brilliance, and then really being able to bring that to life. And you talked about being in a great team. You exponentially increase the potential of everyone in that team if you are leading from a place of selflessness. It's not about me. And that's, I think, what makes a really fabulous coach. Now, do we all have to layer in little bits of being directive? We got to give people things to do. We got to talk, we got to say, I want this done by Friday. We have to be able to delegate, right?
Yeah.
And then follow up and coach. And we have to be supporting. Like the quiz is really about identifying, your strength, but also knowing that leadership is situational and different people, different things from us. But in each one of those, being able to coach people along so they uncover what they need in order to be amazing. I think that's a superpower. That's me. That's me. I don't
know. What's your leadership style?
Well, I am 100% a coach.
Oh, okay, great. That makes sense.
Right. And that whether I'm consulting and someone hires me for my expertise and my knowledge, or I am purely working in a coaching context, I'm always coach-like. I ask lots of questions. I provide ideas and insights that some people, you can't read the label from inside the bottle. Sometimes people need to show you something.
That's right.
But always the idea that it is about supporting and growing and nurturing and guiding others, that runs through all the work I do. And I think if you really embrace a coaching style, like you've said, you recognize that that's actually the purpose underneath all of it. So I love that. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, well, thank you for this quiz too, because it, like you said, I did take it twice and not in a row, but I took it once earlier when we first met, and then I took it again. But I think the questions are really easy to follow, and they're like, you will know one of them will resonate with you for sure, each answer for each question. And then it takes like just a couple minutes, and then the insight you provide is great. So highly recommend people do that.
Thank you. Thank you for that little plug. I appreciate that. I designed that quiz because I think for many of us, we get into our business because we have a question we want to answer. We see a gap that we know we can fill, and we build, and we have 2 jobs at that point. We have the job that is the expertise that we have. And then the second job is that we have to build a business. We have to start leading ourselves in a team, right? So entrepreneurs actually have 2 jobs. For real. That's what makes it hard. It's also what makes it exciting and interesting and such a growth opportunity. Right. But often what happens is we don't think of ourselves as a leader. We don't identify that we are leading. And let's be clear, you're not just leading in your business, you lead in 1,000 different ways every day. If you let someone with 2 items in line at the grocery store, you're a leader. If you hold the door or help the old lady across the street, that's leadership.
Yeah.
Right? You lead your kids. Like for many of us, we're moms or we're aunties or we're sisters, right? And so we
Mhm.
lead in those roles too. And when we can identify what our natural way of leading is, then we can lean into that and we can
Mhm.
understand that maybe there's growth opportunities in the other spaces. And
Yeah.
that's awesome because leadership means constant growth and evolution.
And you know what, too? Once you really start to have that insight, you know what to ask for from other people, from people who are leading you, obviously, people who are on your team. Like you have to articulate and be able to communicate those needs so that other people, I mean, people don't. The worst thing we can do is assume that other people know what we're thinking or other people know kind of what's in our mind.
Right.
But yeah, communicating that and making sure people are really clear on, where you are and what your expectations are. And
100%.
it's leadership. Yeah.
It's leadership. I quote this all the time. Brene Brown says, clear is kind. And it really,
Yes.
she's a genius. Like
She's a
honestly,
genius.
if I lived in
Totally.
Texas, I would totally stalk her. Um,
We're coming for you, Brene.
yeah, we're
I'm the
coming for
same.
you. I know. Please call me. Send me a DM. No, but I really love that phrase, and I think you articulated it really
Yeah.
beautifully. That when we can show up as our best self as a leader, when we
Hmm.
can be clear in the way that we articulate, and when we
Yeah.
can ask people to give us really great feedback,
Hmm.
that's a beautiful cycle of growth for everyone.
Yeah.
It's really powerful in businesses and in teams, big ones
Hmm.
and small ones, and I work with a variety. When we can actually be bold, be clear, but also deliver that with kindness and empathy and
Yeah.
compassion, that's really powerful work,
Yeah.
especially in small businesses, because we depend so heavily on each other.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
just love that. Oh, this is just, I have like goosebumps. This is such a
Oh,
great
good.
conversation.
Good.
I want to
Okay.
ask you the big juicy question. And again, we were laughing about
Oh,
this
yeah.
before we hit record. Where have you made mistakes or missteps? Like, tell us about that and what you've learned, because
Yeah.
that's the golden nuggets.
I will say, oh Lord, I have messed up like so many times. Um, I don't know if it's like a personality trait or if it's more of just like a survival instinct, but just like I don't look back.
Yeah.
And I will say this is true
Hmm.
in a lot of my life. I try not to think about how many mistakes I've made, how,
Right.
I don't want to worry about things I can't change. Right.
Perfect.
Spent some time in that soup and didn't like it and sort of said, okay, enough. But that doesn't mean I still don't make really terrible decisions sometimes, or I don't mess up. I will say kind of on a big high level, one of the biggest things that I wish that I had known maybe sooner, is that I wish that I had not played small in
Mhm.
my work for
Mhm.
so many years. And that comes from some personality things around, again, like being a people pleaser and thinking that if, I worked really hard and I did really the best work I could do, which I always,
Of
achieved to do. And I
course.
feel really good about that I would get the recognition for it, that I would be promoted or I would be, recognized. And what I learned in 20 years of working in many different types of companies around the world is that the people who get the recognition for the work, sometimes not even the best work, but the people who get recognized and get promoted and get sort of like accelerated through their careers are the ones who ask for it. They're the ones who are visible. They're like out there putting
Yes.
themselves in
Yes.
front of the right people and getting, being part of the conversation. And so I think I've messed up, if I could say it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't feel like it's a regretful thing, but I feel like if I had to coach somebody on this, or
Yeah.
I would say make visibility a priority in your work. And I think what we're hearing now, or what I hear a lot of, is that a personal brand is really important.
Yes.
This language wasn't like around until quite recently, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think I would have worked more on my own brand.
Mhm.
And I was reading recently, I don't know, do you know Bozoma St. John? She is a marketing mastermind. She
Mhm.
was the CMO of Netflix and Pepsi.
Oh,
She did marketing for like Apple, I mean,
wow.
huge brands, maybe Uber too.
Wow.
Yeah. So she she said something, and I think, she came into my world simply because she's in marketing and I'm in marketing,
Right.
and she's marketing for these huge companies, but she is so bold in like the way she puts herself as, I mean, she's representing in her roles, has been representing these large companies, but she's still the face of like her own self. Like she's
Yes.
representing herself in such a super cool and bold way.
Yes.
And I really respect that. I think a lot of women can take a lesson from that. And I think she even said something very recently about this, like, your value comes from people knowing the work that you do, right? You have to tell people and not just show them, and don't hide behind the work thinking the
Right.
work is going to show for you, because honestly, the work is what your job, that's your job. Your job is
Yeah.
to do amazing, excellent work. Your job is also to kind of show up as the driver behind that too. So I
Yes.
think I wouldn't say I've messed up in a way. I mean, we could get really granular, but
Right.
I would say that one of the things that I really would like to kind of, encourage people to do is sort of be visible, be without being having an ego about it, but like own
Yes.
your work, own your ideas. Don't let people
Yeah.
speak over you in meetings. Don't let, there's always an office echo. So be careful that the echo doesn't take your ideas too
100%.
far. Yeah,
No, you know what? I really like that. And you're right. I mean, the word mistake makes us feel like it's something that we horribly messed up on. But in all reality, I think there's an opportunity in that to reflect back on what I wish I'd done differently. Maybe that's a
sure.
better way to phrase it.
Yeah. Yep.
I talk to my clients about there's a difference between bragging, which is that ego space, and
Right.
confidently owning and talking
Yes.
about what you do well, where
Yeah.
your brilliance lives. And
Yes.
that's part of my life purpose statement is to be the high voltage extension cord that connects people to their own inner brilliance. And
Hmm.
then to your point, being able to confidently talk about that,
Right.
to have a personal brand. What does it mean to be you? What are
Hmm.
you bringing to the world? And if
Right.
you're not actually talking about it or sharing it, aren't you doing a disservice?
Honestly, that is such great advice, because I think a lot of times too, people think someone's going to tell me to tone it down, or someone's going to tell me to like, just just keep it down. Or I feel like there's always this sort of anxiety, maybe especially for women, that being bold and sort of saying things that are a little bit provocative, or not provocative in a way that like cause
Yeah.
people to sort of think about things in a different
Yes.
way, like that there's something wrong with that. But I think that's actually how innovation and
Yes.
really kind of brilliant new things come
Yes.
up. What do you think that the marketing team at Mattel was doing when they sat around and were like, how are we going to market Barbie core? Like
Yeah.
all kinds of crazy, bold, exquisite, amazing,
Yeah.
unprecedented ideas came out of that. And they were like, yes, 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 yes to every single one of them, you know? And that was probably an environment that was super fulfilling, I would say, as a
Yeah.
marketer, because you could just sort of say and do whatever. But what if it was like, what if it was like that all the time? What if you didn't feel the pressure to kind of, you know, filter what you were saying, or edit, or, feel like things might not, yeah, I don't know. I just
We
think
have to be
so
perfect.
much to be gained by that. Yeah.
Right. And we get so in our heads.
Yeah.
We get so
Yeah.
in our heads about it has to be perfect and it has to be.
Yeah.
I just did this the other day, posted something on LinkedIn. And at one point I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write it and I'm just going to get it out because
Hmm.
editing myself in my own head isn't serving me. So I'm going to write it.
Exactly.
And if I need to save it and come back to it, I can do that. But you know
Yeah.
what? At the end of it, I gave it one proofread, I press send, and actually, it's a great conversation that I've started. And
I
so
love that.
don't edit yourself.
Yeah.
Perfection is not expected. You are a human and you get to iterate and grow
Yep.
and learn and try again.
Yep.
Back to the conversation about take intentional risk.
Yeah.
Okay? Be bold and be brave and
Yeah.
courageous in that because the positive outcome is equally as likely as the negative. And if one person tells you to
Right.
tone it down, ignore that. If
Yeah.
25 people tell you to tone it down, want to pay. I don't know. You might want to look at that and be like, is that real? Or is
Yeah.
that just one man's opinion? Right. But
Yeah.
honestly, just do it. Do the bold thing.
Yeah.
Right. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that you brought that to the conversation today.
Yeah.
Like, just do it. Just be bold. Own
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Own it, because you know what? It's yeah, like you said, it's not serving anybody at all if you don't try it, right? As long as it doesn't hurt someone, or it doesn't cause, it's not going to cause damage. You have to do
Yes.
some like really risk assessment,
Yes.
literally. But honestly, like there's no risk, and just brainstorming, first
Yeah.
of all,
Yeah.
brainstorming with a friend or a colleague,
Or
doing a
coach.
little, or
You know,
coach. Yep.
coaches are
Getting
great
it out
places
there.
to do some of that work. That's a
Yeah.
judgment-free space. No,
Yeah.
I think you're right. Brainstorm without editing, and then go
Mhm.
back and
Yeah.
reevaluate what's really viable here.
Right.
What's the time? What's the capacity? What's the financial? Like all of
Hmm.
those things have to come in. But
Of
if you
course.
need it from that space right from the start, you might be missing a really beautiful opportunity.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Oh my gosh. I could talk to you all afternoon about
I know. It's so
absolutely
exciting.
beautiful. Thank you for this conversation. And I hope if
Thank
you're
you,
listening to
Lindsay.
this, that you play big, right? Like
Mhm.
your brilliance needs to be out in the world. You're
There's
doing
only
it
one of you.
as a
Only
service.
one of you. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you again for your time.
Yeah.
It's just been such a pleasure to have this
Thank you.
conversation with you.
I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Oh, so very welcome. Yes. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. I sure hope you enjoyed listening as much as I did hosting this conversation. And if you did enjoy today's episode, would you do me a favor? Would you give the episode a 5-star review and share it with all of your friends? I would really appreciate that. I've got a goal to impact 1,000 female founders, and with your help, we can really amplify this message. Thanks again for being a part of the show, and don't forget to connect with me and all of my guests on Instagram at High Volt Leadership. We'll see you next Friday.